Hello everybody, we're live and I'm here with Nookrium and MintyJones.
Hello.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody.
Sorry for the late start, everybody. We had a little technical difficulty just getting set up, but we are here now. How's our audio? Does everything sound okay? And Nook, would you like to introduce yourself? Let everybody know where they can find you and how long you've been playing Dwarf Fortress, streaming Dwarf Fortress.
I'm Nook, or Nookrium, and I've started on YouTube, but I also do Twitch, and for 8 years now. I've been doing Dwarf Fortress, though, for 6, I do believe. Quite a long time. And I'm still playing Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah, and you must have thousands of hours of game time as well.
Yeah, I imagine it's got to be up there in the top couple of all time for me, games played.
And Minty?
I'm a relative newcomer to Dwarf Fortress. Just started last Christmas, actually, when the Steam version came out. It was more my style, having some nice tile sets. But I'm still working through my first. I've had a couple of fortresses, but I think I'm about 70 survivors into my new fortress. So, and utilizing some of your tutorials with me or Sal as well, which have been very helpful.
How long have you been streaming altogether, Minty? And YouTubing?
I've been streaming on and off for a few years. I've only got back into it at the end of last year because my PC was actually down for many months. But I'm a very busy man with family, and I don't always have. I'm not always as regular as I'd like to be, but trying to get a little bit more regular this year and really enjoying it. Otherwise, I've been in YouTube for years with the Nid. Who you'll be very familiar with, Sal.
Indeed. And I want to thank Napsa and Sierra Games for the raids. Thank you very much. So tonight we are going to be talking about everything relating to farming and brewing and food production. So we are our Saturday night streams are aimed at new players. We're looking at understanding Dwarf Fortress, and there will be quite a few people in chat. I can see a few known names there who haven't played much Dwarf Fortress, who are really new to the game. So Minty is here to represent new players in chat.
Represent,
indeed. New player represent. So I've loaded up my fortress here so that we've got something to look at, something to compare. And but Nook and we approach things from different directions at times. Nook, have you got a YouTube tutorial about farming?
I don't have one like specifically on just farming, but I've got a few Dwarf Fortress tutorials, and typically that's the first thing you set up. Number one is drink. Make sure you get drinks going. And so yeah, I got the newest tutorial. The first one is where I cover drinks and food production and plump helmets and all that.
Sorry if you can hear a load of banging in my background. There's fireworks going off in my street for some reason.
Is it Lunar New Year?
Oh, maybe.
Mm.
It's a night for technical issues tonight, it seems. Right. I typically set up my first farms in the first summer. I might, if I'm really fast about things, I might get some farms set up in just near the end of spring. How many farms do you set up at first, Nook?
I normally just do one. I set up just a small little, maybe 10, 12 tile farm of plump helmets.
Yeah.
Because that's typically the first thing I do is I dig in, I get a stockpile inside to get all the stuff inside so the birds don't run off with it. And then I and I find my place where I'm going to put a farm, or I'm going to have dirt, for a small farm to start with, and at least just get the plump helmets in the ground. I've had too many times that I have forgotten a few things, and everyone died of dehydration. So that's usually a first priority: is get things in the ground and find a spot to have a farm and get a little farm set up.
So a 10 by 12.
No, like a 12 tile total. Like so, like a 2 by 6.
Right.
Little bitty one.
Yeah, I see. So have you found that's changed at all with Steam? Because with the Steam release, you get a lot less back from your seeds farming on normal soil. Because I found I had to increase my the number of farms, or the number of plots that I put down at the start.
Starting out, I haven't had any problems with it, especially until I get up to about 100 dwarves.
Oh wow!
That usually sustains it. With that, along with, I'll usually put another row in of like pigtails or something just to get some thread.
Yeah.
Just if I need it, but then I got that as a backup for drink if needed.
Chat are asking about the ratio of grown plants to seeds it produces. Is it 1-to-1 or something else? So this is something important to know about seeds and farming is when your dwarfs harvest the plants, the number of seeds that you get back is directly related to the skill of your planters. So who have I got planting? I think I might have... I've got some dedicated planters. We've got some legendary... So this fortress is quite a few years old. I think it's like 10, 11 years old. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 legendary planters, but I've cut it back to just the 5 of them planting. And so how many crops you get back depends on the skill of the planter, not the skill of the harvesters. So I have mine set up so that anybody can harvest.
Right, so it's the planting that matters more than the harvesting.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, everybody harvests.
Important point there in chat is step 1 is make sure you get your farm started, but step 2 is make sure your dwarves do not cook your seeds or don't cook the plump helmets and don't cook your drinks.
You don't get seeds back from that, do you?
No, you don't.
Right, if it's cooked, you don't get your seeds back.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So when I arrive, one of the first things, before I even unpause, I'll go through my standing orders, which are on your labour menu, and go to kitchen, and you want to go to, I've got a lot of random stuff in here at the moment, but go to plump helmets. There they are. And you want to switch off cooking plump helmets. It's not strictly important until you've got a kitchen going. But in case you don't get a kitchen going, in case you forget when you do put a kitchen up, it's a good thing to switch that off straight away.
So essentially you can use plump helmets for food as well as drink, but initially, are they one of the easiest crops to grow?
They grow all year round. They're the only underground crop that grows all year round.
Yeah, they're kind of the standard because of that, because you can just set it and kind of forget about it.
Yeah. How many seeds do you take with you on Embark, Nook?
Basically, it's kind of my leftover number. If I've got like a dozen points left over, then I just put it in the seeds. So a lot of times I'll just do the default Embark just because I kind of like the surprise of what animals I'm going to get.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And otherwise, I'll be spending all day setting up my Embark. So I just take the default and run with my 5 seeds, and eventually I work it out.
Sal, you wouldn't be spending all day setting up your Embark, as far as I've seen, would you?
maybe an hour or 2 before we actually get into the gameplay. So yes, you start off with the standard Embark, with the default Embark. You start off with 6 seeds. 6 types of seeds, 5 of each. I always prepare carefully because I like to. And I will take like at least 25, if not 30, and then throw leftover points into the 4 brewable seeds. So that's plump helmets and pigtails and cave wheat and sweet pods.
So you're saying there's a 1-to-1 return ratio on the seeds?
There is. So when you plant a seed, you get 1 crop. And if they eat that crop raw, which they can do with plump helmets, then they'll get the seed back. And if they brew it, they'll get the seed back. So they can brew cave wheat, sweet pods, pigtails, and plump helmets. But plump helmets are the only things that they can eat raw.
So I'm guessing then, if you know, as your fortress increases in size, you're basically needing to collect more seeds from the traders.
What happens is if your planter as they start to skill up, your planter will start to get a better return on the plants that are harvested. Doesn't matter who harvests them, but since the Steam release, there's been a bit of a nerf to ordinary soil planting. It's considered poor soil now, and so I believe the maximum that we can get back is 2 plants per seed. I don't think I've seen 3 yet.
Okay. So what's the better soil now in this version? Is there fertilizer that you use for the soil, or is there a better soil, overground soil?
There's 3 places where you can plant your underground crops. There's on ordinary soil, and this is red sand. It's just covered in cave moss at the moment. And then there's also down in the caverns. Let me just find the caverns. There we go. So down in the caverns, the soil down here, you'll see it's all covered in floor fungus. It's also covered in bodies.
Nice fertilizer.
So down in the caverns, we have a better quality soil. So a legendary planter down here would get a harvest return of up to 5 seeds.
Oh.
So yeah, you do get, there is a benefit from farming in the caverns, but the caverns are quite a bit more dangerous than they used to be. The caverns are... So, Nook,
exciting is the word you're looking for.
Yeah. In this fortress, which is, say, 11 years old, we've had, I think, 16 forgotten beasts come through the caverns. Plus countless other things. I had a whole bunch of spearfishmen. But, yeah, there are... I mean, the amount of death and destruction down here is ridiculous. It sort of gives you an idea, just looking at the number of bodies, how many things there are in the caverns these days.
How old is this fortress?
This is 11 years old, this fortress.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, it's every turn there's a new forgotten beast coming at me. So I've sealed my caverns off and I don't grow down here. How have you had a different experience, Nook, with farming in caverns?
I'm trying to think if I have farmed in the cavern. I guess I've done a little bit, but I don't typically trust leaving my farmers down there. You can always build a wall or something to kind of block it off, but it's not exciting. So I kind of set up my farms up top, and then eventually I'll try to flood an area and make a bigger farm, and then I get the fertilizer going. I don't know the difference of what this if you fertilize a farm, does that make it like the cavern floor, or is it like a midpoint there?
I believe so, but you have to keep on doing it every season. if you
Right.
want it to bear fruit, if you want it to be good. But the third way to set up farms is like this. So here I'm farming on just bare rock, and you notice that there is no there's no qualifier. There's nothing that says that it is poor soil. So on these farms down here, I should get a return of 5 plants.
I think yeah, if you drop water on it and then turn it into a spot, that makes it fertile, right? Okay.
It does. So to be able to, yeah,
Is there a way of moving soil within the game?
kind of. So what you do is you set up your room where you want to put your farms, and you're going to be letting water in here. So it's a good idea to seal it in just in case things run away with you. And then what I did with this particular farm plot, this particular area, I dug out a room on the surface, and then I've cut these holes at regular intervals. I was testing out whether it was better to have them spaced out quite a ways afar, or whether it was better to have them positioned quite close. And quite close was getting me the better results. So then what you do, if you go to zones and pit pond, and so you do this a little 1 by 1 pit pond over the hole, accept that, and then you designate it as a pond. And then what'll happen is the dwarfs will go to a water source, as long as you've got some buckets, and they will throw water down that hole. So what I'm going to do, because underneath here we're already set up, I saved a bit of space. Hang on, down. Yeah, save some space at the back here for us to do this. But before I get the dwarfs to do anything, I just need to check, because this fortress has just come under siege.
Good timing.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that... Yeah, I'll close this up for the time being. Actually, I'm safe, aren't I?
How dare anyone siege while we're in the middle of a farming tutorial?
I think I can hear the siege in your microphone.
Yeah, that's the siege outside indeed. Oh, dear me. Yeah, we'll deal with the siege. I've got a load of undead corpses on the surface. They will come down this ramp here.
Are you using those bridges to smash them?
I am. I've got a bypass past my dogs, and then there's a bunch of crusher bridges here. And a weapon trap to catch anybody who makes it past. I think I've got the same setup. If I'm going to be getting them doing things, I think I'll close up the other 2 corridors. I'll just have them come in one.
I appreciate your numbering system using the blueprinting
Yeah.
tiles.
Yeah, I've never done that before. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Gonna get them to pull that lever and pull that lever. So I've just got one open.
That's a lot of levers.
Yeah, I've got 3 tunnels with all kinds of traps and things set up. And then
Have you memorized what each of the levers does there? Because if you have, I'm impressed.
it's all laid out in a manner that kind of makes sense. It follows the pattern on the floor.
Right.
The crusher, I don't want you pulling the southeast crusher. I don't want you pulling the southwest crusher, but I do want you to close the southwest door, and I want you to close the southeast door. Right, cool.
If I had it set up like that, I would be pulling. I would just pull every lever and be so lost. I wouldn't keep me organized at all. It's one of these. Just pull them all.
All right. So that'll deal with the undead. I just wanted to limit the amount of work if I've got dwarfs doing other work as well. Right, while that's going on, so they can deal with the corpses while I go down and set up some more farms. So this is a more labour-intensive way of doing it. Let's see. So I've got an area back to here. Let's get them to dig a bit further back.
I'm guessing that this is more in the line of if you want to control exactly in your fortress where you're wanting to farm.
Yeah, well, what this does is it gives you cavern quality farming.
Uh-huh.
But
Right, 'cause normally you're kind of stuck either in the caverns or at the surface. But if you want to get a farm in the safety of your fortress,
yeah,
you're gonna need to make it yourself.
With a good return, a farm with a good return.
Right.
and yeah, so I'm digging out the area over the top, and then I'm getting them to put some more holes in the floor using the channel button. Now I've got to be careful that none of these holes touch. If any of the holes touch, then it's very likely that one dwarf would come and cut the hole underneath that the other dwarf was stood on. So if we made like a big strip and asked them to pour all of the water down the big strip, then yeah, there's you would get a dwarf standing on this one to channel out that one, and then another dwarf would come along and would channel out the floor underneath where the dwarf stood.
So it's not like Minecraft strip farming, essentially.
No, that you need to take just a little bit of care when you're setting up the digging out of the holes so that you don't get injured dwarfs.
Right.
I don't necessarily want all of those doing just yet. I'll let them do that middle row there while we extend upwards.
A good example of how much more organized Sal is than I am. I just dig a hole and throw it in there. If there's injuries, then that's what the med bay's for.
Much more risk associated approach there.
Yeah, I just slap down a big tile of a pond and call it done.
Okay.
Sal, you were saying you tend to try and get your first farm set up in the first spring of the first year.
Yeah.
How long can dwarves survive just on drink alone?
They need to eat. I forget now whether it's once or twice. It's twice a month they eat. Once a month they sleep. Once a week they drink. So they need to drink twice as often. Now, if you've got a river...
Sounds like a Scotsman.
if they've got a river, and they don't have access to alcohol, they will go and drink from the river, but they'll be really unhappy about that. Right, let's
unless the river was made of wine. So.
Yeah. Pit pond, that one.
There's one perk to having an aquifer is it's real easy to get a farm set up underground.
Yeah. Okay, so now I've got 3 ponds set up there, and they'll come and get water the well. I've got a well which is just up this staircase. Yeah, there's my well. So they'll be carrying water down this staircase and throwing it down the hole. There we go. So
Chat just asked if you can pour wine into a pit pond hole and then designate that as a water source.
Now, another way to do this is to connect directly to a river or a reservoir, and to bring water in. That's a bit risky, because you can end up flooding your fortress. But that was another way I could do this. If I go up 2 levels,
I think again the word you're looking for is exciting. You get your heart beating while playing Dwarf Fortress. That's what you do.
I've got a big reservoir of water here. I built a big reservoir on this site because I'm in quite a cold region, so the water on the surface spends more than half the year frozen. So I wanted a nice reservoir full of river water.
How long does a well last for? It's not an infinite water, is it? It's not an infinite water supply, is it?
No. So what we'll see is you can see the bucket going down there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
And you see how the water levels are dropping
There's
from...
a flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is being topped up from my reservoir.
Uh-huh.
And my reservoir is being topped up through this drain pipe here from this river.
From there. Okay.
But the river's frozen at the moment, so the reservoir won't get topped up. So this will start to dry out as my reservoir gets topped back up again.
Right. So it's what is it advisable to make it a deep as reservoir as possible then?
Well, it depends on where you've embarked. If you're in a warm place and the water only freezes for a few months of the year, you're probably not going to have problems. But yeah, this particular embark, it's in quite a cold location. It's just on the edge of the tundra. So yeah, I did build a large reservoir.
Your well needs to at least be in a full amount of water deep to get water out. So if it's at 6, I think I'm right about this. It won't get any water out. It needs to be 7.
Oh yeah, it needs to be 7 deep.
So you'll need to be at least 2-3 levels deep.
Yeah. So the well sump, we'll be doing a different episode about building wells, but my well sump is 4 levels deep on this one. I think you want to make sure it's at least a 2-level deep well. That way you don't have problems with muddy water and stuff. If it's just 1 level deep, you can end up with muddy water. But if it's 2 levels deep, you'll be fine. And this one's 4 levels deep. But yeah, what I could do is from my reservoir here, this stockpile of water I've got, I could dig a channel from here, and I could connect that, drop it down another drain pipe, and I could drop it straight into this room and flood the entire room and then wait for it to dry out.
And what is the excitement associated with that?
Well, I'll let Luke
Utilising
explain.
Well, you gotta make sure you stop that water. Once you've got enough water, you gotta make sure you stop it, because not only is your farm below the water level, but so is the rest of your fortress probably.
So basically, if you left that running, the water would rise and throughout your whole
your whole fortress will get flooded. Yeah.
Indeed, yeah. It will flood up to the level of the water pressure. So depending on where your water which is considered to be, what the water source is considered to be. If I took it directly from my reservoir, then my water source from the reservoir is considered to be the river. So that means that without any controls, the water would flood the fortress up to this layer. Which means I would only have the surface. It would flood the fortress all the way up to the surface in this one. So there are other ways to collect food as well. We can have overground farms. And
when you plant your farms, do you normally do plump helmets? Do you normally do everything you can? Do you have a variety?
To keep a
How
variety.
early do you normally start doing that? Do you do it immediately, or do you normally wait a while before you start tossing in everything else?
So it depends on how busy my dwarfs are. I wait until we've got everything underground, and I've got a seal, like of some sort of front door, something that's keeps me safe, and I've got some beds down for the dwarfs. That's kind of my goal for spring, is get a front door, a safe front door. I usually use floor hatches that go through a U-bend to stop any building destroyers from coming in. Get everything underground, and then put down my beds. Put down 7 beds for the dwarfs so they're not sleeping outside. Once I've done that, I can usually get that done in the first 2 to 3 weeks of a fortress's life. Then I start on my farms. So if it's been a more difficult embark and I'm slow getting to the farms, I'll just plant the plump helmets. But if things have gone easy, so maybe they were digging through lots of layers of soil, which I did on this embark. They went through lots of clay and soil and stuff, and I could set everything up right next to the wagon. They didn't have to haul things very far. So I was underground within 2 weeks. So knowing that I wasn't going to have too much difficulty getting set up, what I did with this fortress was I set up 4 5x5 farms, but I only planted up, I think I planted up 2 of them for spring. And then in summer, when I got some more dwarfs, I planted up 3 of them. And with 3 of them, I could get all of the crops growing. I think my crop varieties are up here. So I do sweet pods in spring, cave wheat in summer, cave wheat in autumn, and plump helmets in winter on that one. In this farm, sweet pods in spring, pigtails in summer, pigtails in autumn, plump helmets in winter. And then the first farm would have been plump helmets all year round. Yeah, plump helmets, plump helmets, plump helmets, and plump helmets.
I'm guessing a variety of food raises the happiness of your dwarves in the fortress. Is that right?
Yeah.
You'll see in the thoughts of the dwarves, they'll start saying they're getting tired of the same old drink.
Booze. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much variety to keep them happy.
That's very much like meals back in Scotland with my parents. It was nearly set the days of the week. You know, you knew what you were getting, and after a few weeks, I'd go, wish I could get just a surprise tonight.
Sal, do you rely on pigtails for thread, or do you try to have an animal industry?
A bit of both. On this embark, I knew this was going to be a dangerous embark. On the world map, I'm surrounded by 32 towers. So
32?
Yeah. I didn't...
Show it, I want to see it.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Okay, so this is the world map. Let's center on the fortress. There's our fortress. And within sort of a day or two's travel, we have a human tower, a human tower, a dwarven tower, dwarven tower, elven tower, another elven tower up there. They haven't attacked us yet.
What a fantastic world.
Human tower, dwarven tower down there. Over here, there's a dwarven tower. I haven't looked into legends yet to find out why. Why are there quite so many necromancers?
Was this just a standard embark, or did you do any setting setup?
No settings. I did run it for 500 years.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Were you wanting a riskier playthrough on this particular?
No,
fortress?
what I wanted was a world with a rich history. But I've run 500-year worlds before and not ended up with something like this. I expected to see quite a few necromancer towers, but yeah, not quite this many. And if we have a look around the rest of the world, I think what's happened is nobody's really settled anywhere else. It's like there's down
This
here...
is the beauty of Dwarf Fortress, you know?
Yeah.
the uniqueness of each and every world.
There's some elves down the bottom of the world there. There's a human town over here. I mean, these are connected, but the world is mostly one continent. There's a goblin island up here and a human island over there. But almost everybody is living in this space here. And for 500 years, there's just been so many wars. So if I look around the place, like that's a human hillocks in a human castle. That should be a human fort, but it's a dwarven fort. And somewhere around here, that's a dwarven hamlet. But we'll find that there's elves living in dwarf fortresses. There's humans living in elven trees. There's goblins living in human hamlets.
A very inclusive world.
Yeah, they've all been swapping sites. Huh. So there's been all kinds of shenanigans going on. It's a very warlike place. And some of the sites I think have been recovered by other civilizations. Like we found somewhere on here, there's one of our old sites, which used to be one of ours, but now has friendly elves living in it. Oh, in fact, that's one of our old ones. That used to be one of our dwarven hillocks, but it's got friendly humans. So they've gone and reclaimed it and chased out the probably necromancers. The necromancers or the goblins who were living there in those hillocks, because that used to belong to the dwarfs. So yeah, it's so I knew that this was going to be a dangerous embark. And when you've got undead on the map, and there's been a lot of fighting already in the history. Depending on
one of my newbie tips is stay away from towers.
Yeah, indeed. On this
Pretty
map,
dangerous. Ain't dangerous early game with him around.
On this map, I was expecting. I knew that we wouldn't be directly attacked, but because I'm kind of in the middle of a bunch of, like, wherever I put my fortress, I was always potentially in the line of fire. So if this tower here decided that they wanted to attack that settlement down there, then they're going to walk across my land. And I started here on a road. So there's every risk that anybody looking to attack anybody else would be following the road down through my fortress.
So they wouldn't only walk across your land; they'd take the opportunity to have a little look-see as to what's going on underneath.
And that's what happened. So in the first summer, we can just see the road under the snow here. In the first summer, so I'd been at my fortress for 6 weeks, and I got my first siege notification at 6 weeks. And it was the undead were travelling along the road. So they didn't siege me for long, they were just passing through. But they knew I was there then. So they came back in my second autumn and sieged me properly at that point. But I knew that we were at risk, and I didn't want anything on the surface. Because if I've got nothing on the surface and something trips across the fortress, then they're less likely to be distracted and come into my fortress. So I didn't bring any grazing animals with me. Just recently I've acquired some llamas so that I've got a source of wool. They've just started breeding, I think it was either last year's caravan or the year before I bought some llamas. But yeah, I've been relying on pigtails. And over here, I've got this massive pigtail farm, which I'm planning on moving to the new underground farm, the one that we're filling with water at the moment, because this is a lot of pigtails. Only the farms are only active in summer and autumn. I leave it fallow the rest of the year because, you know, we've got plenty. So the food.
And leaving it fallow improved. You keep the soil at a good point.
Leaving it fallow doesn't do anything to improve the soil. It just means that the dwarves aren't active on that farm plot. I don't need any more food. So although a lot of that food
doesn't look like it.
Yeah, a lot of that food is pigtails waiting to be processed. But I bought some strange and exotic fruits off the last traders that came through. Yeah, it's these farms here that we want to move underground, because this is, as you can see, I've got a trench in my fortress. So to get over there, the dwarves are having to go all the way down and then across and then up the staircase on the other side to get to those farms. So I'd like them to be a little bit more productive.
Where's the entrance to your fortress?
The entrance to my fortress is in... I've got 3 entrances. They're all underground. So there's this one here, up in the northeast. And this is where the corpses should be coming down. Oh, there's forgotten beast fighting in the caverns. So I've got ramps down into the fortress here. This is the usual caravan route into my caravans there, into my depot there. Then I've got another entrance to the southeast, which is boarded up at the moment. And then to the southwest, we've got another.
You normally just leave your
there.
fortress open, and you just with defenses.
Yeah, so usually I just leave the fortress open with dogs at the entrances to spot for anything coming in, any thieves or ambushers coming in, and then I use either crushers or weapon traps to deal with anything coming in. And if I get anything like... I suffer with monkeys in the... Well, lemurs. Was it? No, languors. Yeah, monkeys in this particular embark. So I do have my military deal with the invading animals. But if I get armies coming in, sentient beings, because I don't want my dwarfs to be upset by the sight of... or being untacked by the undead and that sort of thing. So to keep my dwarfs happy, I just deal with it using crushers and things. So that, yes.
I'm gathering the long wide bridges are the crushers.
Yeah. So if we have a look, you can see the crushers in action over here.
Oh yes. Some mosquito splats.
So I've got a lever that's on repeat that's just pulling those bridges up and down.
Oh, you put it on repeat, and so it just goes up. Oh, that's a good idea.
And then to attract the enemy in, down this corridor, I've got a dog in a room. So they can't get into our fortress because I've got my doors closed, and these are not building destroyers. So they're probably running around on the surface at the moment chasing the wildlife, but eventually they'll come down, and when they've dealt with the wildlife, they'll come down the corridor to try and get to my dog.
Poor Fido.
Yeah. But Fido's living his best life in that room because they'll never get to him. So yeah, that's how I keep my dwarfs away from the outside world. And then if I do decide I want to battle something, I battle in my corridors. I can choose where to battle. That's why I've got so many bridges. Like if I had a goblin army, I would bring them down this southwest corridor, let them walk down the corridor, and then raise the bridges to split the army up into small packets.
Cunning strategy.
And then just take on however many I wanted. But yeah, while that's going on, let's see how they're getting on with flooding. Oh, there we go, flooding the farms. So it's slow using buckets, but at the same time it's quick to dry using buckets. And
so is as it dries, the soil's left
yeah,
as a residue?
you
Right.
end up with this dusting of mud. And that's all you need. If you've got a dusting of mud, then you can put a farm plot on top of that.
Okay. Now I'm right in saying there's no real graphical representation of the crops in the farm, is that right?
Not until they're grown.
You can click on it and see like if there's seeds there though.
Oh yeah, if you click on the farm. So like here, this is empty. If I go to one of my existing farms, let's go upstairs. Yeah, you can see that's all planted up with plump helmets at the
Right.
moment.
I'm curious how you set up your workshop orders for like drink and food.
Yeah, sure. So for the new players, to brew your plants into alcohol, you need to build a still. Let's see, my stills are down a floor, aren't they? I've got a food stockpile immediately underneath my farms. And I've got my stills and my kitchens right in my food stockpiles. So I've got 2 stills, 2 kitchens, and then I've got them set up on work orders. Let's just find them. Right, at the moment I'm making lavish meals.
Ooh.
And I've got them, I tell them to make 100 lavish meals whenever there's less than 100 made. So as soon as it drops to 99, they'll make another 100. So we're varying between 199 and 99. When it drops to 99, they pick it back up to 100.
Is lavish the highest grade?
It is, yes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What are the different tiers?
So you have
I remember what it's called, biscuits. I don't remember what it's called though.
yeah, easy
Easy meal,
meals,
that's it.
which are biscuits.
Yep.
Fine meals, which are stews, and lavish meals, which are roasts.
Oh.
And yeah,
My poor dwarves have been surviving on biscuits for quite a while now.
yeah, I mean biscuits are fine. Biscuits only use 2 ingredients, so if you are cooking your food, then you're using 2 sets of ingredients. Or you need 2 sets of ingredients to be able to make the meals. And biscuits are fine. With lavish meals, they're using 4.
I typically start with biscuits, and then once I've got a setup going, then I'll crank it up to
Yeah.
something nicer. Do you
There's
for
my
your drinks? Do you set up like a barrel work order as well?
I do. I use rock pots rather than wooden barrels. That way I don't need to cut down so many trees. I always think of trees as being a rare resource because I like to buy exotic animals from the elves. So I don't want to be at war with the elves for as long as possible. They've started bringing me grizzly bears at the moment. So I'm hoping to get
nice.
a bunch of war grizzlies.
For some reason, the elves typically just give me things, but then they never come back. I'm not sure why. Could have something to do with the axes I use, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I avoid using wood for things where I don't need wood for things, so that it limits the amount of trees that I need to chop. And of course, trees, unless you do some shenanigans with like channeling down or building up high walls, it's difficult to farm trees in a safe place that's outside the weather. And as you can see, it's very snowy here. Dwarfs don't like the snow. It's like rain. It's outdoors.
Can you also hide the farming of the trees from the elves?
No, they know.
They know. They feel it. They feel it in their bones.
They do. The trees must tell them through the underground, the underground root web. So they know if you chop down trees. But here my soil was thin. I wanted to get walls up and a roof on quickly. And because of the risk of the undead, that's why I dug a channel, because it's faster to dig a channel than it is to build walls and a roof. So I dug a channel around the side with an overhang so that the undead couldn't climb into the fortress. And then just threw a wall around the edge to stop them from shooting at the animals. But because a migrant came with a grazing pet in like the second year. The second wave in the summer, so I needed to make the surface safe anyway. So I just claimed this area as ours and then got round to putting a roof on it so that the dwarfs could come here and work. You can use the surface as a tree farm and then build up walls so that they're 3 high and put a roof over it and have an indoor surface tree farm. Or you can channel down a pit so that you've got an underground tree farm. Do what we're doing with the... Where was it? Is it one up? One down. One down. Yeah, do this and get the ground nice and wet, and then grow underground trees. So if I channeled out the area above here, so that this was a 3 high hallway, and then just left this mud on the floor, because we've got cave spores floating around the place, eventually this would start growing trees.
As long as you have dirt, as soon as you break into the caverns, you'll start getting those spores up.
Yeah.
So anything with dirt, open dirt, will start growing. That moss and whatever else was growing there, and of course the trees.
Indeed. Right, how are they doing at wetting this area? There's a tile there that they've not done. It seems to be struggling to get to that tile. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Do you set up a sort of a butcher setup, or fishing, or anything else to deal with the food from other sources? Or do you just rely on the farms?
I don't use fishing, except maybe for the first couple of seasons. If I think I'm in a fairly peaceful area, I might use one of my first 7 dwarfs to go out and grab some fish, but it's not something that I do regularly.
Are you exposing your dwarves to too much danger?
Yeah, the outdoors is a dangerous place and it's full of weather. Dwarves just don't like weather. Huh. So I don't.
That's fair. I guess
fish.
That's underground. There is a lack of it.
If I've got a canyon, like if I've got a river that's flowing through a canyon, then which you often get if you get waterfalls on your embark, like if you've got 2 rivers meeting, like the confluence of 2 rivers on an embark, you'll often get one of those rivers will be in a canyon, and then I might set up some fishing for them because they can fish from a covered pier. and it just keeps them safe from attack from things like birds and rain and stuff.
Fishing is a good way of, if you have any trouble with food, you'll never have a problem with fruit if you've got a fisherman.
That's true. Yeah, they do bring a lot.
Yeah.
If you're fishing, then you need an extra workshop. Let's just go up to the surface. You need a fishery. So that they can clean the fish, because they can't just cook fish. They can't eat fish raw, and they can't just cook the fish. So you need to put down a fishery. But
they're not wildly into sushi.
no, indeed. Your standing orders should have automatically clean fish. So as long that's set as a default. As long as you've got a fishery down, someone will come and do that. And then, yeah, butcher. I put a butcher. I brought pigs with me for my food animal. And I had some spare points. So I put those spare points into peacocks. I brought some peacocks for egg laying, but I brought some peacocks because they're basically walking meat and leather and bones. So
that's one way to describe peacocks, and they're also beautiful.
So on my embark, when I was choosing what to bring with me, I set up. Let me just find my animal rooms. Yeah, I brought 2 sows and 2 boars, and they've been breeding like crazy.
Oh, they sure have, haven't they?
Yeah, so pig meat, there's lots of pork, and there's lots of leather in our fortress. And
so your lavish meals, do they include crops and meat?
Yeah, they
what
can be.
What ingredients do you have?
They can be any cookable item. So they can't cook cave wheat. Now, I could grind the cave wheat into flour, and they could cook with the flour. They can't cook sweet pods, but we can turn the sweet pod into sugar, and they can cook with the sugar. But I don't usually bother with that, to be honest.
They'll also cook, of course, they'll cook your plum pellets, which you don't want, but they'll also cook your booze if you don't turn it off.
Yeah.
And your tallow as well if you're trying to make soap.
So another.
I must admit, one of the first things when I started playing the game, which was quite overwhelming, was just the sheer amount of animals that were in the game. To choose
from? Oh, just generally.
It has an effect on you. You'll go to the zoo and you'll think, that's a lot of leather, bones, and meat right there.
yeah.
What do you think?
So when you butcher an animal, it doesn't matter what the animal is. It can be a puppy, it can be an elephant. You get 1 leather.
Right.
With the exception of cavies and rabbits. They don't give you any meat, they don't give you any bones, and they don't give you any leather. All they give you is 1 skull. Every other...
They're just walking heads.
They're just walking skulls, yeah. For the rest of the animals, you can get 1 skull and 1 leather from each animal that you butcher. And then the quantity of meat and quantity of bones depends on the size of the animal. So you're going to get more meat and leather from an elephant than you are from a peacock chick. But
what do you utilise the skulls and the bones for?
The bones you can use to craft things like trinkets, and you can decorate stuff with bones as well. So these nest boxes here, I could have those nest boxes decorated with peacock bones to remind them what what will happen if they don't lay eggs.
There's a very passive threat there, I like that.
I can't believe I've only just thought of that.
The skulls make for a nice decoration outside. You get a nice line of pedestals with skulls on them. just to let the elves know where they're at.
And skulls you can turn into totems. The dwarfs like totems. It's one of the things that they like to keep and store in their bedroom.
Those are the morbid little dwarfs.
Yeah, they do like stuff made out of bone. I suppose, I don't know, maybe it's like us and stuff made out of ivory. If we look at, you look at an ivory thing and think, like, well, you know, that's an animal's tooth there. That's a dead animal there. But yeah, they like to make totems out of skulls. And they can be a good trade good as well, totems. So it's one way to use up your skulls. In fact, I should do that. I don't think I'm doing anything with the skulls at the moment. Let's go to my Crafts Dwarfs workshop. I've got 3 Crafts Dwarfs workshop here. And I'm just turning a load of siltstone into gems to get rid of those as well. I'll set up a workshop, a work order on this workshop. And I'll
when do you decide to do a work order in the main work order area and then just in an individual workshop?
When
it's just kind of one-off stuff that you're
sometimes I do it separately. Like, I've got sand gathering, I've got glass making industry set up at the moment. I can show you that one because that's important that I do it at a specific workshop. I'm just gonna tell you to make me 10 totems and do that. Maybe 10 totems seasonally. They'll work their way through the skulls. I don't think I'm butchering 10 animals a season. Mind you, they've got a bit of catching up to do. So maybe I'll change that to 20 for the moment. There we go. That'll work their way through the skulls. And I'll just sell those. Unless the dwarfs want to keep them. They can claim them if they want them. So, yeah, no feasting on roasted KV whilst wearing a snappy KV pelt tunic. Indeed. So that's what you do with the skulls and the bones. Bones are quite often required in strange moods as well, so always useful to have an animal that you can slaughter. In case you get a strange mood that needs leather and you don't have any, or you need bones and you don't have any, then you can just slaughter an animal at a butcher. And to slaughter an animal, you set up your butcher. Unless you've particularly forbidden butchers, which I've controlled who can do butchering, because dwarfs that like nature don't like butchering. I've got 4 dwarfs in my fortress that don't like doing butchering. So if we have a look at, let's see, Vedafalna. Vedafalna was one of the awkward dwarfs. Where are you? I've gone past you. You're usually near the top. Oh, there you are. Oh yeah, expedition leader. So Vedafalna, if we have a look at Vedafalna's personality, she's she very rarely develops negative feelings towards things after being forced to endure the decay of her spouse in the year 508. That was one of those whoopsie moments where I forgot to put a tomb down for her spouse who died of old age. Yeah, so when I had a look at her personality, personally affronted by the whole notion of maintaining decorum and find so-called dignified people disgusting due to wearing old clothing.
I didn't realize this. So if they like value nature,
Yeah,
then they'll get bad moods from butchery.
there we go. Holds nature to be of a greater value than most aspects of civilization. After being caught in the rain. So rain actually had a very significant effect on Vedifauna. Vedifauna loves nature. Vedifauna liked nature before, but now absolutely adores nature. And so if we made Vedifauna butcher an animal or cut down a tree, that would give Vedifauna negative thoughts, because Vedifauna is basically a hippie at this point. Very much, or a bit elvish, likes to... but Vedifauna is really good at plant gathering, stuff like that. That'll make Vedifauna happy.
Does Vedifauna realize that those planks came from trees, though? Maybe we shouldn't tell them.
I don't know about... There's certain things I'm not sure about, like whether wood burning or creating potash, whether those cause an issue for people who like nature. But certainly butchering and chopping down trees absolutely do. Yeah, but I don't get them wood burning either, just in case. So I choose who can be my butcher. As long as you've got somebody who can butcher and you've built a butcher's shop, the standing orders will take care of the rest. So automatically butcher carcasses. Now they can't butcher rotten carcasses. They won't butcher some of the animals that like they won't butcher an animal that's died of old age, like these two dogs here. They died of old age, and same with that cat.
Too sinewy, too tough.
I guess so, yeah. So if I want them to butcher an animal, what I've got to do is go to the creature tab and then pets and livestock, and I choose something for them to butcher. And I'm going to choose... Let's see if we got anything I don't need anymore. Who's going to be the lucky creature? We can't butcher people's pets. Now, my donkey I am using to eat the moss in my sand gathering area.
So do you keep a close control on the butchering?
Yeah, you choose who you want, which creature you want to butcher. I don't keep as much control over the animals as I should. I've got a war polar bear, a war grizzly bear, war lynx.
Wow.
Boars. We've got plenty of boars.
Sure do.
Let's butcher the older boars first. I always make sure that I keep 2 breeding animals. There is, I think it's about a 2% chance that an animal is either asexual or homosexual, so won't be interested in breeding. So yeah, it's worth...
Yeah, hit the cleaver, not the... You're gelding them.
I'm gelding them. Whoops.
Yep.
What's that? Gelding? What does that do?
That stops them from breeding. Because then it doesn't matter whether they are asexual or not. Yeah. I geld all of my war dogs.
Why?
You don't want them distracted?
That's because I am at the point where I've got so many dogs now. I'm trying to keep my female dogs and my male dogs apart. So I haven't quite got to it yet, but I'm going to be digging out a room for my male dogs, and I'll lock them in that room. Every so now and then, I'll need to recall my war dogs. My war dogs are the ones that guard the entrance. Sometimes they'll, especially with something like a werebeast, they'll spot a werebeast And I don't just want to leave them with the werebeast, I want to recall them. And I do that by putting a pause on their pen pasture. And then they'll run in. And usually what happens is one of the dogs gets caught up. I'll show you. So these 3 dogs here, if this door was open, and it's closed at the moment because we've got dead things walking around on the surface, but usually this door is open and that door's closed. If a werebeast came into the fortress, usually one of the dogs would spot it first. I would then go to this pen pasture and pause it. The dog that's already engaged will stay with the werebeast. The other 2 will run into the fortress. So as soon as I pause that, the dogs run in. And that's why I use dogs rather than something else, because they're very good at returning. So they will often survive. Because they're so quick, I can usually get them inside the doors and get the drawbridge up, even with a werebeast chasing them. And then I can just engage the crushers to deal with the werebeast.
You ever crushed a dog by mistake?
I've crushed some people by mistake. I've never crushed a dog by mistake. I have locked a dog out when the dog didn't quite make it back fast enough, and I had werebeasts coming in, and werebeasts are building destroyers, so I did need to get the door closed. And I thought the dog was just taking too long to get in, so I closed the door. Now, so I flipped a few dogs. I always have the doors closing inwards, because if I'm doing an emergency close and somebody gets flipped by a bridge, I would much rather them
stay inside.
Yeah, flipped inside. If they get flipped by a bridge, there's a good chance they'll just end up as a blood stain on the ceiling. But there's a chance that they might get flipped inwards and just suffer some injuries.
Some mere flesh wounds.
Yeah. We can't heal the animals, unfortunately, but certainly for the people we can. The animals, if I get an injured animal that survives something like that, then I just retire them in the fortress. They can come and be a stud dog, unless of course I've gelded them, in which case they can just go be somebody's pet. But an injured animal. One of my war dogs gets injured. They come into the fortress and they live a happy life there.
Do they come into that decoy room and they just the bait room, I suppose you call it?
No, because if they've been injured and survived, they're usually a hero. They're usually a hero dog.
Yeah, and build a statue out of them.
Yeah, they usually get to live out the rest of their lives safely inside the fortress. Somebody's pet or something like that. And then I just replace them with another dog up the front. So
where's your wine cellar?
Oh, my wine cellar. So I have my wine cellar immediately above my dining room. So my food and alcohol are all stored. Doesn't really matter where you store your alcohol. It's where you store your food. So your dwarfs will get happy thoughts from eating in a dining room. You're in the dining room. Have you eaten recently? Oh, you're eating at the moment. Let's just have a look at your thoughts. Yeah, oh, no, there you
go.
Blissful dining in a legendary dining room. And she might even remember that from previously. Yeah, blissful remembering dining in a legendary dining room. Oh, she's been accosted by worms.
Oh, goodness.
What a lovely dining room.
That was early on in my fortress's life. I did have the pigs and
a worm outbreak.
The pigs and the peacocks were living in the dormitory. So, yeah, probably from those guys. Because they do snuffle up their own bugs to eat. So, yeah, I have my dining room immediately below my food stockpiles. And then I don't have any other tables or chairs. The other side, so that there's no tables or chairs above the food stockpile. So when they go to grab some food, the nearest chair is directly below
The dining room.
So when they're calculating the path, when they're calculating where's my nearest chair, they calculate it as the crow flies. They don't calculate the length of the path. So putting this immediately above means that if somebody goes and gets something from, let's say I've got some prepared food pots over here somewhere. That's a meat pot, but supposing that was a prepared food pot. If they go there, then the nearest chair for them is down 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiles. So it's 7 tiles to get to a chair to go to my dining room. Now, it's possible that some of the food that I've got up here, say from that meat barrel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can't remember where I've left my manager's office. Was it here? It's over here. Oops. Yeah, so there's a manager's office over here, and there's a bookkeeper's office downstairs somewhere. So I try to keep my anywhere that's going to have a table and chair in it, I try to make sure that that is as far away from the dining room on an XY basis, as well as on a Z level basis as well, to make sure that they are far more likely, no matter where they're collecting the food from, they're far more likely to go to the dining room to eat. Because if they eat anywhere else, yeah.
You've got an understanding manager that will, occasionally allow someone just to appear in the office.
Yeah.
The table.
They will as well. Anyone can go and eat in the manager's office if they choose to. And I do eventually want to put down chairs and tables in my library and start getting them writing books. Because I've got necromancer in the fortress, and I would like my whole fortress to become necromancers.
I just did that. My last fort just did that.
Oh, did you? How did it go?
Yeah. It's no longer my fortress, so we'll leave it. That's about how it It was exciting, though. And that's what I was going for.
Yeah, I previously, it was a couple of years back, I made a fortress full of necromancers. There was about 10 dwarfs that I couldn't get to go to the library to read a book. Everybody else became necromancers, and it was exciting, but they were very powerful. We even managed to defeat the clowns in the circus.
Oh, wow. Mine, I made the mistake of getting one to walk by my corpse trash. So it was an exciting time. My frame rate didn't like it.
Yeah. So yes, the clowns in the circus. That's
spoilers.
Code for spoilers, indeed.
I see.
You will find a few surprises in Dwarf Fortress, and us as experienced players, every time there's an update, there's surprises for us.
Okay, keep you on your toes.
Indeed.
When it comes to, you talked earlier that you're able to store food in barrels or you use pots. Is it the same with alcohol, or can that only be stored in barrels?
No, it can be stored in rock pots. Okay. So there's a dwarven ale pot there, and it's in a rock pot. There's an empty rock pot there, and the rock pots. Yeah, I use the rock pots so that I don't have to make barrels. Now, barrels are lighter weight. A rock pot is typically 33%, about a third heavier than a wooden barrel. Now, there are lighter rocks and lighter woods, but they're kind of your edge cases. Usually, the rock pots are a little heavier, but they do hold the same amount as a barrel.
Okay.
Oops, just went down a little bit there. But yeah, you can use any of the rocks as a rock pot, and if you're not carrying stuff long distances, then the extra weight doesn't matter. These rock pots are just being carried to and from the cooking stations, and the farms are directly above as well, so they're not going very far with these rock pots.
And a note that your drink levels are a lot lower than your food levels.
Yeah, that's because there's a lot of raw food. So things like the plump helmets, the pigtails, they're counted in this food count. It's not until they're converted into wine and ale and stuff that they count as a drink. But I've got lots of drink ingredients in that 3,000 stock there.
Is there a same kind of mechanism with drink? You've got your tiers of meals from easy to lavish. Is there the same kind of thing for booze?
No, there isn't. And with the meals, as well as having the quality of meal, I wonder if we can find any prepared.
I think it's just variety, just
here.
the different mushrooms.
Yeah, they like
mead.
They like a variety. Let me just see if we've got any prepared meals. Yes.
Have they got any IPA in there, Sal?
They do have ale. But the ale is made from pigtails. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
It's wine from pump helmets, rum from sweet pods.
I don't remember.
Or is it ale from wheat? Yeah, I can't remember now.
Someone in the chat says it's pigtails.
Yeah. So here's some prepared pig intestine biscuits.
India tail ale.
And some prepared pig brain biscuits. There's some grey langer meat biscuits.
I haven't had breakfast yet.
They're not particularly good quality. I mean, they're a bit better than base quality. The minus sign means that they are like we got some prepared giant gazelle kidney biscuits, and they don't have any quality indicator. So a minus sign is better than nothing. A plus sign is better than a minus sign, and the asterisk is better than a plus.
You've got your three lines.
Yep, that's better than a asterisk, and then the best quality ones have like a sun sign in front of them, and that is a masterwork. So I've just started putting in dedicated cooks, because before I was letting anybody cook. Started dedicating my cooks, so we'll start bringing up the quality, and then we'll start getting people enjoying their fine meals. At the moment, they're not particularly fine meals. But I noticed that we're just left with biscuits. So they've obviously eaten their way through. Oh, maybe I've only just put in the better quality food. Yeah, I think I only recently put in the work order for better quality food.
I was going to ask if you set a specific dwarf to do the cooking for that purpose, to get the good quality meals.
Yeah, I do now, and I should have done it earlier. My population's pretty low, so I haven't specialised the dwarfs as much as I normally would, because usually I would bring in, at least 100 dwarfs or more. 100 to 300 dwarfs I'd normally run with. Running with less than 50, because I'm using this fortress to set up things for these streams, actually, especially for the Monday night streams when we do deep dives into things. I don't want a mare. I don't want to be I don't want to have to worry about mandates and things. And if I haven't had any werebeasts as well, so keeping it below 50. It could just be that there's not that many werebeasts in the world. But yeah, I haven't had a single werebeast attack, despite the value of my fortress being quite high. Because either of those things can trigger.
I keep hearing all these werebeast stories, and in all of my Steam Dwarf Fortress, I think I've only had one fortress that had werebeast that showed up to it.
I think my first fortress had a werebeast. I think I had 2 different werebeasts in my first Steam fortress.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't had. They don't seem to be anywhere near as prevalent as they.
Yeah, it used to be. It was almost guaranteed that's the first thing you find.
Yeah,
But
indeed.
they seem to be toned down a bit.
I think I've had one fortress with some werebeasts.
So they are still around. I've seen them in Legends. I've seen werebeasts pop up in Legends.
Yeah.
So what were we looking at? Oh yeah, and drinks. I was going to have a look at the drinks that we've got in stock as well. So drinks don't come with a quality indicator. They just have the types.
So wine, ale, rum, and beer.
So yeah, I've got wine, rum, beer. Oh, beer comes from cave wheat, and ale comes from pigtails.
Pigtails.
I think it's that way around. I always get the cave wheat and the pigtails mixed up.
Is there more types as well, or is
indeed.
that? Yeah.
So if I go to one of my stills, I'll put in a work order and say brew drink from fruits.
Oh.
And I want you to brew, we'll say 30 drinks from fruit. I want you to do that seasonally. I don't often have fruit. I tend to buy fruit from the elves. So every year we get a good stock of fruit in, and I think I've got plenty of fruit at the moment. Does fruit come under its own thing? Leaves and fruit.
You can't see it. Oh, there we go.
So I should have... Yeah, I've got loads of strawberries. So I want to get those brewed up. That'll give me seeds back, and I can put those on my above ground farms as well. I've got
Why specifically your above ground farm?
You can't grow strawberries, like crops that grow on the surface can't grow underground.
I see.
Stuff that grows on a tree, so yeah, that's telling us that it's a fruit. But the saguaro fruit, I think, is a tree fruit. We can't plant the tree seeds afterwards. We've got some muskmelons as well. Got some watermelons. I think I bought in the watermelons and winter melons. The muskmelons, I think we've collected from the surface. But yeah, I've got loads of seeds. Some of those seeds will grow in this biome. I just need the seeds to do it. So here, bearing in mind how far north we are and which biome I'm in, I think I'm in a woodlands. Some things will grow and some things won't. So I can grow muskmelons, alfalfa, asparagus, barley, bilberry, bitter vetch, blackberries. There's lots and lots of different things that can grow here. Some places you'll go and they'll only grow a few different types of above ground seeds. So your above ground farms, I've run out of seeds because I haven't processed the plants back. But the above ground farms, they need to go on a tile that's once been exposed to the sun, but you can then roof over them and they continue to grow.
I did not realize that. I thought they had to be always in the open.
No, you can roof over, no problem at all. And the soil here is as good as cavern soil. So if you've got a good planter, you'll get a lot of plants back from the upstairs farms. Just that most of these things can't be brewed. Some can, but not a lot. A lot of them can only be cooked. So
Don't know if I'd want a drink brewed from asparagus.
So getting hold of new seeds for above ground farms is a bit difficult. So I have here a gather area. So this is a gather zone. Now I switch off gather fruit in trees. I let them gather any fruit or vegetables from shrubs and any fallen fruit in the area, but I don't let them use step ladders. You can set up, like over here there are lots of, now this is outside my fortress, I don't actually have any trees inside my fortress, but you can put a zone down. We've got apple trees, there's an almond tree there, a peach tree there, another apple tree there, peach, plum, almonds. So what I could do if I wanted more food is I can put a gather fruit zone. And if I put a gather fruit zone that includes a bunch of fruit trees, it'll default to using step ladders to go and harvest the fruit out the trees. They'll gather any fruits on bushes on the floor, so they would gather that muskmelon there. There's some string beans there. The quinoa, they gather that as well. As long as it was in season. So you can plant them any year round, but they'll only produce in certain seasons.
What is the type of alcohol that's brewed from fruits?
It tends to be things like peach wine and strawberry wine.
Okay, yes.
But the dwarfs, they really do like a nice variety of alcohol, and most of them have a specific alcohol that they prefer. That if you cook their preferred alcohol into a meal, they will remember that meal. Like a masterwork, finely minced plump helmet roast with strawberry wine. They'll remember that for the rest of their lives. But yeah, they'll gather all of the fruit that's on the floor, because we look here, there's all kinds of apples on the floor. There's peaches on the floor. Ash samaras. I don't actually know what ash samaras are. They might be edible or brewable. I've no idea. But there is a risk with step ladders. So
is that falling off them?
No, it's getting stuck in the tree. And every experienced Dwarf Fortress plays had this at least once. So, and it's got worse with the Steam version now that kids can do chores. So what happens is a dwarf goes and gets a step ladder and climbs up in the tree and starts gathering the fruit. Meanwhile, another dwarf, maybe for one of two reasons, will move the step ladder. Either the dwarf is going to a different tree to gather fruit and just pinches the step ladder off the first person, or they've said, who's left this step ladder out here? It's supposed to be in that stockpile over there.
Is the third reason just for a practical joke?
Prankster. So I always
just got the image of the little dwarf up a tree, with his short legs, just having a bit of a tantrum.
There. Yeah, and they will die of dehydration up in a tree. You have a choice. If you've got a dwarf stuck in a tree, you have a choice.
Chop the tree down?
You can either chop the tree down, which is usually the safest thing to do. Sounds crazy, but
goodness,
it's fast. And you usually don't realise that there's a dwarf in a tree until you find out that you've got somebody who's dying of dehydration.
Have we ever had a fireman in real life, going to save that cat up the tree by chopping the tree down?
So chopping the tree down, usually the dwarf will fall on the person who's chopped the tree and they'll both end up with bruises or maybe a broken leg or something. But usually they'll both survive.
Right.
The other thing that you can do is build a staircase or a ramp from the ground up to the leaves so that the dwarf can like ramp down the leaves. That's another way to do it. But yeah, usually you're short on time when you've realised you've got someone stuck in a tree. So at that point, I will just go and chop the tree down because they might survive the tree falling, whereas usually they won't survive the time it takes to construct something to get them down. But I don't want my dwarfs outdoors, so I'm not going to be gathering any of the fruit. But that is a way to get your hands on a lot of food and brewing materials early doors.
If you're in a dire situation where you find yourself out of drinks, you can quickly go out there and
just gather all of the fruits and things in an area. The other thing that you can do is use the gather plants button here. That will only gather the floor crops. So we've got some purple amaranth, some parsnips, some quinoa, some parsnips there, quinoa, purple amaranth, parsnips. There's Longland grass there. They make Longland beer out of that. A quinoa there. Now I don't want the dwarfs coming outside, so I shall cancel that designation using the eraser. Right, didn't leave any on, did I? I don't want the dwarfs running out here as soon as I open the doors. So over here, to get seeds for my above ground crops, I've got this little planting area here because things crop up from time to time. I could also go and tell them to go and harvest anything that's harvestable. So if you use this instruction, the plant gathering, that's a one-off instruction. Go gather the plants that can be gathered. They'll do it once and then they won't do it again. If you use a gathering zone, that stays there all year round. People will go and gather when there's something that's ready to harvest.
It's quite a large outdoor area you have there. It must have taken a while to build the roof above that.
It did. It took ages to build the roof. But I wanted to claim an area because this was going to form a sort of tower. I wanted the inside of the tower to be a usable area. So I didn't really need that much space on the roof.
Have you ever done a fortress which you've built outside as a tower above ground?
Yeah, they are tricky. Nuke's done one recently, haven't you, Nuke?
Oh yeah.
Yep. I had my last couple. I had a big tower and I had a pyramid in the last one.
Oh wow!
Like an above ground pyramid. Those are I like doing above ground stuff. Just an extra challenge, you know.
How do you
extra excitement?
I've done one with a just like a town, so multiple buildings and kind of like a stockade. Just mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
And playing the Dwarf Fortress for 6 years, you gotta spice it up a bit.
Indeed. And they're on YouTube as well, aren't they? Your VODs are on YouTube of those above ground fortresses. I've been watching them.
Yeah, I just Stone Sense is now out with DF Hack.
Oh,
you mess with it any? Did you ever met yet. Stone Sense before?
I did a long time ago, but I haven't for a while.
That's the other reason. Those 3D viewers make it look so much nicer. Just for the final look at those weird fortresses.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Chat
what is that
says,
you mentioned?
strike the sky. So Stone Sense, it is a third-party utility that allows you to walk through your fortress and see it in 3D.
Oh wow! Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, there's two versions. There's Armok Vision and Stone Sense.
Yeah. Yeah, they just got been out for a while, but now they can be used on the Steam version. I haven't messed with Armok Vision yet. I just found out that one was ready also.
Ah.
But yeah, you can't really play with it. I guess you can technically, but it's just nice to kind of, after you're done with your fortress, pull up Stone Sense or Armok Vision and get a nice look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah. Go and have a Wonder 3.
But yeah, the tower fortresses, they like when you go underground, it's real quick. You know, you dive in and you can start getting your fortress set up pretty quickly, and in a month you can have things rolling pretty good. But on a tower, it takes a lot to get set up, because you got to get, depending on what you're making a tower out of. If you're making it out of stone, you got to start getting some digging done and getting the blocks made, or chop a bunch of trees down. Or my tower I made was out of glass, so I had to get the whole glass industry running.
Indeed.
Start cranking out the glass blocks to build the tower. So
I must admit,
it's difficult to get started and timely, but once it gets going, it gets good. It's nice looking.
The first search I've done in Google for Stone Sense, your video has just come up top in that page, the castle of Stone Sense.
Oh yeah, that's one of my old. I played with like it in the old version of Dwarf Fortress with it on one side of the window, so you can kind of see the 3D view as I played on the other side.
Very cool.
We talked about work orders earlier.
Oh yeah, you're going to show your sand.
I was going to show the sand. Yeah. So I've got like sand up here at the top of my fortress, and at this glass furnace here, this is where I want them to collect the sand. So I've got a work order for collecting sand up here. So if you want to collect sand to make into glass, you need to put down a glass furnace to put those orders in. So I've got 2 glass furnaces, both with work orders only on these furnaces. And then deep down, really deep down, in my fortress, minus 74. I think it's even 1 or 2 below, 1 below that, so minus 75. I've got a little bit of magma here. I didn't know the magma sea was over there. I found this magma pool first. And I put down 3 glass furnaces here. And these ones have got the instructions to make my glassware. So I'm building pump stacks at the moment for the magma out of green glass stuff. So the work orders for the stuff to be that where it needs to be powered, I want to do those at my magma furnaces. But to collect sand, they don't actually use the furnace. They only use the furnace to get the instruction. If I add a new task here, if I had collect sand here, they'd come to, like, the workshop is so far away from the sand. I don't want them making double trips, like to come and get the order and then go and collect the sand. So I've got the workshops up by the sand, but if they were to make green glass up on the sand furnaces upstairs, then they'd have to fire that using wood or coal, and I don't want them to do that. Don't want them to use the wood or coal when we've got perfectly functional magma glass furnaces down here.
Right.
So, and you also you need the zone for where you're going to get that sand from.
You do, yeah. And that is, I've got this little zone here for collecting the sand. They need bags to put the sand in as well. Because I've got all of this moss growing, that's why I've got a donkey in that little spot, because the donkey keeps on eating away at the moss. So there's always a little area of sand. There's different ways to deal with that.
That's a good idea. I when I was doing that tower, I had a real problem with the sand kept on getting overgrown. So I finally stuck a separate spot for sand to dig out. I didn't think about using an animal to eat it. Good idea.
I think you can put down, I forget now whether it's grates or bars. One of the 2 of them will stop the moss from spreading, but you can still gather the sand through it. Great, yeah. Chat is saying grates. Grates
you put
work.
A grate on the sand. Does it?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Put a grate on the sand and it'll stop it. Yeah, or an animal in the area to eat the grass, eat the moss. If you're using an animal, then you do need to make sure that there's more than just one tile, because the animal will give you 1 or 2 tiles. If it's just one tile, then you risk your animal either starving or the sand plot not being available at the time, like being mossed over at the time when your dwarf wants to collect from it. So yeah, just do a small area, but more than one tile if I'm using an animal.
That's a donkey's life in that little pasture.
Yeah, just sit there and eat stuff.
More exciting than that dog's life down there.
Now, another place where you can gather food is, like, if you've cracked open the caverns like I have, and you've got moss spreading around your fortress. You can see here we've got some stuff. Where are we? We're spring, so sweet pods should start growing soon. There's some growing sweet pods there, so I can tell them to go and gather those sweet pods. There might be some.
So do they just grow due to the spores?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can always find that down in the caverns too. So if you find yourself out of food, it's another place you can grab new plump helmets or whatever else you need.
Indeed.
It's also worth noting that your food industry is kind of like in the first year, you got to kind of put some effort into it, getting everything set up. But after that, it's not much of a thought needs to go into it. Once you get the work orders set up, and yeah, everything runs on its own. There's not really much micromanaging needed, if any, to deal with the food and drink supplies.
Yeah.
Once you get the farms and the orders set up, you're good to go.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing if you don't manage to do that properly in the first year, then you're going to hit some issues.
Yeah, you'll find some troubles if you eat all your plump helmets.
Yeah.
If you cook them all up and you don't have any seeds left, then you'll have to do something to go. You have to either go out and get some stuff outside or get into the caverns or buy from the traders.
But check that out in my initial fortress.
Indeed. So that to reiterate that's an important thing to do at the start when you get set up. Go to kitchen, turn off brewing for your turn off cooking, for your plump helmets. Seeds are the seeds default to not being cooked, but also turn off cooking for your drinks as well, because otherwise they'll go and cook up all of your drinks.
Yeah, and same thing. Once you slaughter an animal, make sure you, as soon as that fat gets rendered,
don't
get in there and turn off the cooking of the tallow, because they always cook. It seems like as soon as tallow pops up, they start cooking it because it's already in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I've just got to double check my game. I have indeed switched that off.
I think I'm going to go for peafowl soap.
Yeah, you don't need a lot of it. I just try to find one animal.
Yeah,
to keep not cooking the tallow. The other ones are fine, but like if I'm farming cats or something, I'll make sure the cat tallow is not cooked.
Indeed. I've got cougar tallow, but I don't know when I'll be butchering a cougar again. I've got giant cougar tallow. I certainly don't know when I'll be cooking giant cougar again.
Yeah, cats are typically my farming animal. It hurts being a cat person, but they produce they so quickly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, and they also keep the
vermin
critters out of the food.
Yeah,
they're useful.
Yeah,
and they make a fine soap.
So talking about keeping the vermin out of food, to keep your food fresh and to make sure that your food doesn't degrade in any way, you need to keep your food in a food stockpile. So this is a food stockpile. You should be custom. Oh yes, you are. I don't keep my seeds in my food stockpile. I've got a special seed stockpile up by my farms, so that they don't have to walk down here to get the seeds. And I keep my lye out of here as well, because that's just down by my soap working, my soap making stuff.
I like to keep my my food and my drink in a separate stockpile. I've had before where my food stockpile was full of barrels of food, and
Yeah.
there wasn't
No
any
more
room
room.
for drink in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to keep an eye on it and just see if I need to expand. My food stockpile just started off as this middle area, but yeah, it's kind of expanded all over.
Yeah, your stockpile is massive. Right?
Yeah, it's very
Smaller stockpiles.
very large at the moment. But yeah, if your food is outside of a food stockpile, it will begin to rot. So alcohol's not so much of an issue. I'd never seen alcohol rot. I don't know if you, Nook.
I don't think so. I think just food.
Food's the important one. Food will rot.
So why are there some odd pieces of clothing in your food and drink stockpile?
It's just people happen to have been here when they were wearing a pair of tatty socks.
I see.
And
Or they had too much drink and just stripped off.
the X means that the item of clothing was worn out. So they were here probably having a drink, and a
Right.
pair of socks became available downstairs. So they took the socks off, left them in the food stockpile, and went downstairs and picked up some socks. Probably as
Sounds like
soon.
my kids just leaving socks.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, someone's taken their dress off there.
Ooh.
Just like run downstairs, pick up a new dress. What have we got over there? Yeah, there's another dress there. Some trousers. A pair of donkey leather trousers, just abandoned.
X-rated cream here.
Dwarves hate being naked as well, but they're more than happy to leave their old clothes. So we've got a pair of shoes here. Someone's come up, had a drink, and then they've decided the next thing they're going to do is go and get themselves a fresh pair of shoes. So they've just taken their shoes off there and then gone back to the clothing workshop to go pick up some new clothes. But yeah, wherever you've got food stored, you are likely to get vermin. And to keep the vermin at bay, you keep cats. So the cats will catch the vermin. I probably need to expand my cat stockpile now. I do.
Do you keep them gelded, or do you just let them breed as they see fit?
I geld the males.
Right.
Gonna expand this over to here.
So do you have breeding areas within your fortress?
I let them breed until they've reached a certain number, and then I start gelding them.
Yep.
Oops. Yeah, switch you off. We'll just let the cats come out here as well, because there's probably rats in the food out here. No harm in letting the cats go into the workshops.
I'm guessing if you don't keep control of the the rat population, it can get a horde.
It's not that you get a horde of rats, it's that they eat your food.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get those out here. And I think it's rats I've got here. We can have a look and see what it is by looking at my refuse pile up here. Actually, I don't seem to have any vermin in the refuse pile. Just some bits of butchered animals.
What is the walled off portion you have to the north here?
That's my corpse stockpile. In case I get any corpses, it just keeps them out of view.
Yes.
The refuse stockpile will degrade any of the vermin remains that are brought up here. So anything that's in this stockpile will start to deteriorate over time. All right. What else have we got to show? Can either of you two, anything I've missed when it comes to covering food? Oh, seed stockpiles.
Oh, yeah.
In the seed stockpiles, I don't allow any barrels. That used to be really important. Oh, hang on, we've just had a raid. Garawa and And Hallie Gally, thank you so much, both of you, for the raids. Very much appreciated. Yeah, chat was asking. Somebody in chat mentioned don't put barrels in your seed stockpile.
Is that still a problem with Steam?
It's not really a problem anymore. So it used to be that because the barrels can hold, like the seeds go in bags and then the bags go in barrels, so the barrels can hold a huge quantity of seeds. And you might end up with all of your seeds just in one barrel. And the dwarfs used to claim the barrel. So if a dwarf is on the other side of the map, claims the barrel because his next job is to plant a seed, it might take him a week to get to the barrel before he can go plant the seed. And in the meantime, nobody else can access the seeds. And you used to get a warning saying, you've got no seeds. And you look and say, I've got 100 seeds in a barrel. Why are they saying no seeds? And
there's just one dwarf cuddling a barrel in his room.
Yeah, one dwarf who wasn't even there. One dwarf saying, no, that barrel's mine, I'm on my way.
I don't think that's an issue anymore.
It's not an issue anymore.
I haven't messed with taking the bins out of the seed stockpiles and had a problem with it.
The reason why I've done that is because I'm buying a lot of exotic stuff from the elves. So I end up with seeds in my stockpile that we can't do anything with. If I have a look at the seeds that I've got.
Having a seed stockpile next to your farms is going to save you a lot of walking time for your dwarves, for sure. Right,
orange seeds. So they've either been brewing or eating oranges. These orange seeds we can't do anything with. They are just stuck in my fortress now.
Can you grow them overground?
You can't grow any trees, so we can't plant tree seeds. So what I tend to do...
Is that just because is that a space problem?
No, it's just a technology problem. Dwarfs don't have the knowledge to grow trees of any kind. They can prepare the ground and allow trees to spread there naturally. And they can harvest them once they're there, but they can't plant their own trees. So I tend to sell off those seeds to traders, but to sell a barrel of seed, you can't. When you go to trade seeds, you can't pick out the individual seeds if they're in a barrel. So I would end up just selling a barrel of seeds with all the seeds in it. So that's the only reason why I prevent barrels in my seed stockpile. And that's one of those edge cases where it doesn't really matter. And it's only if you want to sell seeds at a trader that you want to prevent them from putting it in barrels. Oh, just realised I don't allow the dwarfs in there. That's my garbage disposal in there. But otherwise, yeah, these days, no problems at all in having barrels, because more than one dwarf can access a barrel at once now.
This doesn't go along with food, but it does sort of go with farming and ranching. Is as you're growing thread and cloth and all that, how do you set up your clothing industry?
Oh, I can show you. So I try to keep my clothing industry as close to the farming area as possible, which, because I was working with a small tower in this case, is a few stories below. And I've got a leather worker, and a loom, a farmer's workshop, a clothier's workshop, and a clothier's workshop.
If you have just multiple workshop orders set up to...
I do. So
close every season or so?
I've got... I must have it... Yeah, I've got it generic, haven't I? If I have a look at my clothing... Right, so I'm making leather trousers. 5 leather trousers every season. So I make 5 a season, because bear in mind I've only got 46 dwarfs. So 5 leather trousers a season for 50 dwarfs. We need to have 1 pair of trousers made per dwarf every 2 years. And then maybe, because they wear out their clothes on a 2-yearly basis.
And is leather a more durable material to use for it?
Not for your clothes. If they wear it as armor, then yeah. But that's kind of a whole different kettle of fish.
Makes for one sweaty dwarf.
I'm just splitting up my clothes so that I'm making some out of pigtail and some out of leather, because they're the 2 industries that I've got running. So it's mostly pig leather, but I'm also buying in a lot of leather from traders. I buy in pigtail cloth from traders as well. But I'm under siege a lot, so I don't get traders every year. So you want to make sure that your dwarfs have that they at least get their lower body, their upper body, their feet and their hands covered. As long as they've got those on, then they're not considered naked. But they also get unhappy if their clothes get tattered. So what I look at when the migrants, like my first wave of migrants, when they arrive, I have a look to see what they're wearing. Because sometimes they'll come and they'll have mittens, or they'll have like not just a shirt but a vest. We'd know them as waistcoats, like an external vest over their shirt, or maybe they've got coats, or they're wearing a hat or something. We want to make sure that we're making the clothes to replace their tattered clothes as well. So make sure that they've got the basics to keep them covered, but then make sure that you're replacing everything that they are wearing that's going to get tattered.
You have those llamas now. Are you going to plan on using them as part for thread?
Yeah. So I'll probably start introducing another item of clothing for them. Especially if I start bringing more migrants in, there's always a chance that more migrants will bring something, that they'll be wearing something else. One person turns up wearing underwear, and you've got to make underwear for everybody. One person turns up wearing a coat, you've got to make coats for everybody.
The jealousy strikes deep.
It's because that one person that's wearing the coat, that's a separate clothing layer to all the things that you're making. It's an over layer of clothing. None of our dwarfs have got an over layer of clothing. So if we want to make coats, so that the dwarf that's wearing one can replace it when it gets tatty, as soon as we start making coats, all the other dwarfs will say, "Hey, I haven't got one of those. I'll go put one on." And so you end up with your whole fortress wearing coats, just so that you can replace the coat that the other one's wearing. Same with hats or mittens or something. Soon as you've got one of those things, some things are interchangeable. Trousers and skirts are interchangeable. So if a pair of trousers becomes tatty and there's a skirt available, they'll replace trousers with skirts. Shirts, tunics and dresses are interchangeable. So any of those 3, they'll replace one with the other.
Okay.
Coats and cloaks are interchangeable. But gloves go underneath mittens. So if you start making mittens and everybody's wearing gloves, they'll put the mittens on over their gloves. And then they'll wait.
These dwarfs are getting moister by the day.
Well, I'm in the tundra, so...
Well, that's true. Is that your clothing stockpile to the left there?
No, it's actually my cloth stockpile. I don't have a clothing stockpile in this fortress.
Is that so? Is the clothing just kept within the workshops?
Yeah, and then I'm destroying every so now and then. I'll go and destroy the old clothes that are around the place, because I'm using this as a perpetual world, and I don't. Normally, I would sell my old clothes, but I don't want those clothes to continue to exist in the world afterwards. And I also forbid. There's a bin there, a clothwood bin that's forbidden. With all of the stuff in it that's forbidden, that's just reserving that for. Same with leather. I've got some silk and some yarn forbidden as well, just for strange moods. So that as I make lots of clothes, if I accidentally run out, I've got some in reserve. Oh, and something I should mention as well, because it's kind of butchering related. I found that the best balance for butchers and tanners is for every butcher, I have 2 tanners, because a butcher can go through. If I tell them, like I've just done, to go and butcher 10 pigs, the rawhide will begin to rot before one tanner has finished it. So I found that having 2 tanners is about the right proportion per butcher. And I keep my butchers and tanners and fishery up on the surface, because the byproducts of butchering, now at the moment we've just got hooves and bones and skulls and things in here, and that's fine, but stuff like cartilage, we got camel cartilage there, and intestine, the byproducts that they can't use, there should be some nervous tissue. No, I don't see any. Oh, there's
is that tissue that's about to get a heavy nose blow on it?
It gets it starts turning rotten. So the butchers and the fishery workers, because they have food and byproducts which will rot if they're not moved. Depending on, you might not spot that a food stockpile is full, you might not spot that refuse stockpile's full, and you can end up with miasma in your butcher or your fishery worker. One way that people deal with that, rather than putting them outdoors, because it's fine for me to have them outdoors because they're under a roof and they're safe. There's 2 other ways to deal with this. One is you have them indoors, but you build a wall. Excuse me. If you have a wall and the wall has a diagonal access to it, then the dwarfs can get in and out of that diagonal, but the miasma doesn't pass through the diagonal. Or, of course, you can put a door. But, of course, whichever dwarf is working there, it's a nasty thing. It's not the nicest of places for them to work. So I'll do that if I absolutely have to butcher underground. It does happen mostly like very dangerous biomes. I might need to get my butcher underground quickly because I want to butcher my grazing animals quickly. The other thing that you can do is you can channel a hole. Let's just see where I'm channeling into. Yeah, it'll be fine. You can channel a hole, and then underneath that hole needs to be the middle of the workshop. You put your workshop underneath the hole, and then floor over the hole. And that area underneath there, that little spot there, which is where all of the meat and rubbish collects, that'll be considered outside, so it won't produce any miasma. So that's another way to do it.
That's a handy little hint.
Now, of course, the problem with that is you're probably going to be doing that just one layer below the surface. I mean, you could go down too and have a chimney coming down and just floor over the top, and then have a chimney come down and have your workshop layer below. If you're working just one layer below the surface, we would need at least a corridor. If a tree grew in that spot and we chopped it down, it's going to leave a hole in the roof because you've mined underneath it, so you've mined out its roots. And yeah, any tree that grows there that you chop down later, because there's no roots underneath it, just leaves a hole in the ground. So, and that, if you're, depending on how your fortress is designed, that could let the enemies just jump straight into your fortress.
I think we've all been there where
we've all been there
without realizing there's like 15 holes in my fortress.
Yeah, there's 15 holes in the roof. How's that happened? Indeed. I've sometimes found that where it's like, why am I not growing plump helmets in that spot? It's because it's an outdoor spot now.
Yeah.
That's the other thing to spot. Why is the grass growing in this corridor? That sort of thing. Indeed. We are coming up to the end of this session. Is there anything that we've missed? Any questions from chat that we've not answered? Nook, can you think of anything to add? Minty, can you think of anything else?
I think we about covered everything. I can't think of anything else, but
We've been pretty thorough.
And as a relative newcomer to the game, I've discovered lots of things, certainly, which I'll need to take into consideration. So I think there's been a healthy amount of information shared in the stream.
Oh, question from chat. Aren't farm plots buildings? Won't building destroyers take your roof away if it's a farm plot? So what you do is you put down a floor. If you've got a hole in the roof, then you construct a floor over it. And that floor is not destructible. They can't destroy the floor. Floors and walls are safe from building destroyers. Any kind of building destroyer, even if it's a dragon breathing fire and your floor is made out of wood or cat soap or something. I don't know if we can still make floor. Can we still make blocks out of cat soap?
I don't know, but you've got me an idea for my next fortress.
I don't know if that's still a thing. It certainly used to be. I've built constructions out of soap before. I built a bath out of soap once.
Fortress.
Oh.
I did mention having different kinds of alcohol to get variety, indeed.
Someone's asked, does food in a food stockpile never go bad, or does it just take longer, or is it?
Never goes bad. Well, if it's in a good stock, if it's in a food stockpile and there's, it lasts forever.
Yeah.
Oh, soap construction's no longer a thing. That's a shame. Probably sensible, but a shame. Selling masterwork items, they don't mind you selling at masterwork items. They don't like them being destroyed. So if you've got a really good cook, you've got to care about making sure that the masterwork food, like the masterwork meals, don't rot. They're quite happy for the dwarfs to eat the masterwork meals, and they're quite happy for them to be sold. But if they rot or they get crushed under a bridge, then they get unhappy about their masterwork being destroyed.
Meals make for a very good trade item as well.
Yeah.
Especially early on, that's typically my trade item when I haven't got my crafting set up yet. Toss a couple meals at the dwarves and they'll be happy.
Yeah, get a bunch of prepared meals made. Although I found the value of that's dropped quite recently.
It's not quite what it was, but it's still, especially lavish meals are still pretty good.
Yeah.
For early on, anyway.
Right. Well, I think that's all we've got time for today. Any other questions from chat before we go? Will empty farm plots be destroyed by building destroyers? I don't know. I've never seen a building destroyer destroy a farm plot, but I'm
trying to think.
Sure.
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Because, mind you, if a building destroyer's got into my farm plots, I've usually got bigger problems. Or they've usually got other things to distract them.
That's the last thing I'm thinking about.
Yeah. And if a farm plot's destroyed, you can just put it back down again, so it's not too much of an issue. Yeah, usually the issue is that you've got a building destroyer on your farms, and not so much that they do the damage they're doing. But yes, I would like to thank chat for watching, and Nook, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Love to have you back another time if you would like to.
It's been a different experience. Normally, one of us is talking, the other one's typing.
Yeah.
popping in streams, but we're both talking. It's weird.
And Minty, thank you so much for joining as well, and hopefully we'll get you back sometime too.
It's been a pleasure, Sal. Thank you for having me as well. It's been very enjoyable and a learning experience.
And good luck with your future fortress endeavours. Right, in the meantime, let's go find somebody we can raid. Let's see who's playing Dwarf Fortress out there. Oh, I should say my next fortress, my next Kitfox stream is on Monday, when I shall be joined by Foldable Human. We're talking about pump stacks and how to build pump stacks. Foldable Humans, also known as Folding Ideas on YouTube. And he's the guy who did the original artwork for the pump stack diagrams on the Dwarf Fortress wiki. Let's see who's streaming who we haven't raided before.